Okay. Assalamualaikum and very good evening to Dr. Hassan. As you can see on the screen, today we are going to present our report on surviving struggle Manila Protestant to Pak for sustenance. So this is our group members, consists of 5 members, including me, Norna Shinabiha, Nordini Sohaida, Siti Nur Afika, Chelvin Wong, and Camilla Kamal. Sustainable Development Goals. Today we are going to present you about our big topic, which is no poverty. Let's take a look on the left side, which is SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, that was developed in 2015 to ensure that by 2030, people cherish a happy life and prosperity. Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, has become a popular term in our community, and it has grabbed our attention to do through research and explain the benefit and impact of this goal on our life, community, and nation. Now moving on to the right side, poverty. Poverty is a condition in which a person, group of families, or the entire community live below the minimum standard and lack access to the finance. Because of limited budget, create the competition between poverty reduction initiative and to the another SDG. And on our study today, we are going to examine the parts converging in urban poverty, focusing on economic practice and proposing measure of equitable, sustainable welfare for marginalized community. This is our research framework and investigative variables that consists of 3 elements, which is effect, factors, and strategies. Effect consists of food-related disease and compromised student nutrition and growth. And for the factor, it is include the affordable and availability, the culture of urban area, and the government agency on regulation regarding food safety and sanitation. And lastly, for the strategies, the education campaigns on nutrition, strict implementation on policies and sanitation, and lastly, provision of alternative livelihood program and financial support. Our dependent variable is effect, and our independent variable is factors and strategies. This is because effect depend on factors that contribute to the poverty and the strategies that need to be implemented to control the poverty. Next slide. I'll pass to the next presenter, Dini.
Okay, thank you, Nasha. So I will start with the problem statement. So the first problem statement that we find is the Filipino resilience. So because it is despite the economic challenges, Filipinos display remarkable resourcefulness and resilience in coping with poverty, widespread issues transcending in culture and racial boundaries. So the second one is urban poverty in Manila. So Manila faces like significant urban poverty with over 3.1 million homeless individual and numerous slum zone. Residents resort to scavenging for pakpak, which is food leftover, due to the limited resources contributing to malnutrition and health risks. So the third one is documentary intervention. Documentary intervention is a documentary aims to shed light on the plight of Filipinos surviving on Pakpak and the broader issues of poverty. So by amplifying their voices, the initiative seeks to spur actions toward addressing the socio-economic and inequalities and improving public awareness. Next slide, please. So for our research questions, by investigating the factors and strategy, the primary aim of this study is to address the following research question, which is the first one is what are the factors that contribute toward pak consumptions within the community, and the second one is how does the practice of pak affect the community, and the last one is the what are the strategies that can be implemented to reduce pak consumptions. Next slide. So our objectives have three. which is the first one is to examine the factors that contribute towards pakpak consumption within the community. The second one is to investigate the effect on the community of practicing pakpak. And the last one is to find out the strategy that can be implemented to reduce pakpak consumption. Next slide. So for our hypothesis, which is from our research framework, factors that contribute to the pakpak positively influence the effect on people consuming pakpak, and the strategies that contribute to the pakpak positively influence the effect on people consuming pakpak. Next slide. So for our significance of study, the first one is shed lights on poverty and inequality. This research investigate the root causes of why people resort to pakpak, highlighting the harsh realities of poverty and unequal access to resources in Manila. The second one is understanding the survival strategy. So by studying pakpak consumption that happening in Manila, the research provides insight into the resourcefulness and resilience of marginalized communities struggling with food insecurity. So the third one is connections to sustainability. The research explored the link between food waste, poverty, and consumption patterns, potentially informing strategy for sustainable development. And this fourth one is inform policy and solutions. This finding can be used to develop better policies and programs aimed to poverty alleviation, social justice, and improve access to food in urban area. So the last one, our significance of study is support the sustainability development goals, which is the study connect to the sustainable development goals, SDG. One, no poverty, particularly those focused on poverty reductions, hunger eradications, and building sustainable cities. So I'll pass to the next presenter.
Thank you, Dini. Now I will cover for the literature review part. Based on our first article, urban areas like Baseco in Manila face unique challenges in ensuring access to sufficient and nutritious food. The study sheds light on the dynamics of urban poverty, job instability, and their impact on food availability. Global urbanization trends contribute to the concentration of economic opportunities in metropolitan areas. Baseco, once a tidal deposit area, now hosts a significant number of informal settlements despite government initiatives for socialized housing. Slums and informal settlements, including Baseco, accommodate a substantial portion of the urban poor, according to the Asian Development Bank. Our study employs purposive sampling, focusing on women responsible for household chores and other vulnerable populations. Women often manage child rearing, budgeting, and food preparation in accordance with cultural norms. Meanwhile, the husbands, considered household heads, engage in sporadic and part-time work, leading to income instability. Living conditions in Baseco, Manila, particularly in Block 6, highlight urban exclusion marked by job instability, poor service accessibility, and inadequate housing. Despite efforts by NGOs, a significant portion of Baseco's population faces environmental and health risks. Inconsistent work and low income pose significant obstacles to achieving food security, exacerbated by educational barriers. The qualitative data underscores how low income and irregular incomes directly impact households' ability to access sufficient and nourishing food. In Baseco, the informal, part-time, and low-paying nature of many jobs hampers household budgets and limits opportunities for steady employment. That's it from me. Now I will pass this to Ika for the next two articles.
Thank you, Chelvi. Next, I will continue with the second article titled The Perceived Impact of Alternative Food Source PAPAT on Selected Families of an Urban Poor Community in the Philippines. So in Metro Manila, leftover food from restaurants and fast food chains has gained popularity as an alternative food source for urban poor populations. So this terrible poverty that exists in the Philippines has forced many people to turn to other ways of survival. So the urban poor communities enjoy the practice of pakpak since it is inexpensive and accessible. The hunger crisis in these areas are the result of structural, economic, and social difficulties. Their socio-economic situation heavily impacts their decision to get pakpak. So extreme poverty forces them to rely on what is cheap and available. Other than that, the culture of this urban impoverished population strongly influences their decisions. Providing nutrition education encourages healthy food choices and the adoption of appropriate behaviors, therefore improving persons' overall quality of life. The main goal is to develop nutritionally literate people who are motivated, well-informed, competent, and inclined to choose helpful options. Next slide, please. So this is the third article, Environmental Impacts of Food Production and Food Waste Management, drawing from Life Cycle Assessment LCA approach and an understanding of local systems in Bangalore, India, and Metro Manila, Philippines. So we just focus on Metro Manila, Philippines. So the poorest people of Manila resort to scavenging for abandoned food scraps in the trash. So this recovered food, known as pakpak, is purchased by destitute people who prepare it for their families. Even though there were warnings from the government's National Anti-Poverty Commissions (NAPC) about the health risks of eating recycled food and the negative impact on children's nutrition, more concerted efforts are required to alleviate poverty and hunger, eliminating the need for people to scavenge for food in trash heaps. Despite the NAPC's suggestion that disadvantaged households seek monetary transfers instead of depending on recycled garbage, many continue to eat this waste food. Furthermore, the Philippine government should investigate ways to transfer extra food from restaurants, cafeterias, and hotels to disadvantaged regions. Next, I will pass on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Ika. So I'll be presenting about the research methodology. So the research methodologies that we use are two methods, which are qualitative and quantitative approaches. We utilize surveys and interviews to gather data from specifically UTP students. Various analysis ensure statistical rigor and reliable findings. So our research methodology consists of research approach, technique, and tools. This study combines of the qualitative and quantitative methods for deeper insights and extensive data collection. Next is sampling. The probability sampling is via simple random selections. This ensures unbiased representation from UTP students and individuals knowledgeable about poverty. It is also convenience. Sampling gathers also for response. Uh, Convenient sampling gathers responses easily. The third one is sample size and parameters. The study that we uh, the study that we do employ qualitative and quantitative methodologies for a comprehensive evaluation. So data collection methods include surveys, interviews, and leveraging the use of social media. So the data collection consists of literature review, survey, interview, and statistical analysis, which are descriptive analysis, regression, p-value, and covariance. Next is data collection, as I mentioned on the previous slide, and analyzing data findings based on the method chosen. We use the data analysis that involves evaluating key information from the qualitative and quantitative approach. The methods include the use of surveys, interviews, and statistical techniques like regression and covariance analysis. Next is the quantitative methodology. In this quantitative survey, the data is collected using a Google form that we share across social media platforms, including WhatsApp, Instagram. and we only take 32 random responses for our case study. The survey included questions on respondents' information and poverty knowledge. We divided the Google form into 4 sections, which are the demographic. Section B, C, D is the questions that we asked regarding our case study. So we asked about factors contributed to poverty, the strategies to prevent pak consumption, and effects of people on consuming the pak. So next, Nasha did interview with Nurjana binti Yusof. She is a student at Institute Pendidikan Guru and is on her 3rd year program that are currently doing her research on SDG 1 as well. In the interview, we asked her 5 questions related to the factors that contributed to poverty. The interviewers experienced strategies, efforts to tackle poverty, and technologies that play as a crucial role in order to control poverty, and additional strategies related to the ethnic minorities in Manila that consume pak. Next, I'll be passing to the next presenter.
Thank you, Siti Camelia. Now I will continue with the finding descriptive analysis. Okay, now let's take a look on the graph. According to the diagram, the standard deviation for factors that contribute to the poverty is 0.24. For strategies to implement is 0.26, and for the effect is 0.35. The accuracy of the result can be confirmed as the standard deviation value for the 3 variables are not significantly different. In summary, a high standard deviation between variables indicate low precision, while the low standard deviation between variables indicate high precision. Next slide. And for the covariance represent the degree to which two variables vary on change concurrently. In other words, it assesses the degree to which change in one variable are correlated with change in another. The positive covariance suggests that if one variable increases, so does the another, and vice versa. Taking on the example from the diagram, the covariance value is 0.025 and 0.048. Reflect the strength of the relationship between factors and impact. It shows how much the factors, independent variables, correlated and fluctuate with the effect or dependent variables. The positive covariance value indicate that when factors shift, effect tend to shift in the same direction, whereas the negative covariance implies an opposite relation. Next slide. For the correlation analysis, regarding this diagram show a total of 32 samples, all of which have positive correlation. This correlation coefficient reflect the degree and the direction of the linear relationship between two variables. A positive correlation indicates that while variable A grows, variable B likewise tend to rise. The number depict the degree of relationship between the variables, which is the high positive correlation, indicating a strong association, or low or weak and low or weak correlation, showing no meaningful relationship. For example, the greatest correlation value is 0.409 and 0.523, indicate a significant link between the factor contribute to the poverty and the effect consuming pork to the strategies to prevent the pork consumption. Now I'll pass the slide to the next presenter.
Thank you, Nasha. Next, I will continue with the regression analysis. So the first one is factors contribute to poverty. So based on the diagram, you can see that the multiple R value that we obtain is 0.21. So this represents the linear relationship between factors contributing to poverty and predicted values by the model. And then higher multiple R value indicates a stronger relationship. Next, the R squared value that we obtain is 0.05. So this is the statistical measure in regression model. It determines proportion of variance in factors contributing to poverty explained by independent variables. Next is the standard error of the estimate, which we managed to obtain 0.35. So this is based on the square root of residual mean square, and it is the estimate of average squared error in prediction. Next slide, please. So this is the coefficient value based on the factors. So the coefficient value for intercept, we managed to obtain 1.02, coefficient value for factor 0.31, standard error for the intercept is 0.31, standard error for factors to prevent poverty is 0.26, and then for the t values, we managed to obtain t value for the intercept 3.34, and the t value for factors to prevent poverty is 1.2. So this t-value is a statistical measure that indicates the relevance of an independent variable in explaining the dependent variables. It is computed by dividing the predicted regression coefficient by its standard error. Next is p-value. So p-value for the intercept is 0.00, while p-value for strategies to prevent PAC consumption is 0.024. So it is less than the standard significance level of 0.05, suggesting a significant result. So the coefficient is in this case is positive, thus the hypothesis is supported. Next slide, please. Next is regression analysis for strategies to prevent PAC consumption. So the multiple R value that we obtain is 0.5. So this also represents the linear relationship between strategies to prevent PAC consumption and the predicted values by the model. So the higher multiple R value indicates a stronger relationship, and the R squared value is 0.25. So this same like the factors, it is also a statistical measure in regression model and determines the proportion of variance in strategies to prevent PAC consumption explained by independent variables, and the standard error of the estimate is 0.31. Next slide, please. So this is the diagram shows the coefficient we obtain for the strategies. So the coefficient value for the intercept is 0.5, while the coefficient value for the strategies is 0.68. For the standard errors, standard error for the intercept is 0.28, while the standard error for strategies to prevent PAC consumption is 0.21. Next, the t values. T value for the intercept, we managed to obtain 1.78, while the t value for strategies to prevent PAC consumption is 3.2. So also same like the factors before, t value is a statistical measure that indicates the relevance of a dependent variable in explaining the dependent variables. And it is also predicted. It is also computed by dividing the predicted regression coefficient by its standard error. Next is p-values. So p-value for the intercept is 0.08, and p-value for strategies to prevent PAC consumption is 0.003225. So we can see that it is less than the standard significance level of 0.05, so suggesting a significant result. The coefficient in this case is also positive, thus the hypothesis is also supported. Next slide, please. Next, I will pass on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Afika. Now I will explain about the discussion of this case study. In our analysis, we found that factors positively and significantly influence effects, where regression equals to 0.230, meanwhile the p-value equals to p less than 0.05, indicating that improvements in factors lead to corresponding improvements in effects. Specifically, a 1 unit increase in factors results in a 0.31 unit increase in effects, representing a 31% increase in the dependent variable. The R-square value indicating rate of change in the dependent variable is 0.05. Additionally, our ANOVA result suggests that factors are significant where F value equals to 10.25, supporting our first hypothesis. That's it from me. Now I will pass this to Dini for the strategies effects discussion.
Thank you, Shelby. So I'll explain about the strategies that to prevent the pak consumption, which is strategy also has a positive and significant influence which on the effect, which is the regression's value is 0.409 and the p-value is less than equal 0.05. This means that when strategies improve, effect will also improve. So according to the findings, 1 unit increase in strategies will lead to an increase of 0.68 units in the effect, which equals to a 68% increase in the dependent variable. So the R-square value is 0.25, which shows that the rate of change in the dependent variable is 0.25. And this indicates that the influence of strategies toward effect is very high. According to the data observation, strategy is significant and thus the second hypothesis is also supported. Next, I will pass to Shelby. Nasha, sorry.
Okay, as of the conclusion, our study on Pak has brought to light the reality of deep urban poverty in Manila, while also showcasing the resilience of communities affected by it. Pak refer to the practice of scavenging leftover food from garbage site, which then repurposed for consumption by those living in the poverty. The widespread use of pop-up served as a poignant reminder of those severe economic inequality prevalent in the city. However, the research goes beyond just highlighting the economic disparities. It dives into the public health and communal well-being aspect associated with the pop-up. Despite the challenging consultants, the survival strategies of pop-up underscores the tenacity of the urban core and their ability to adapt to their circumstances. Nevertheless, the study emphasized the urgent need for focus to the intervention and legislative measure to address the underlying causes of poverty, ensuring a sustainable solution that uplift this marginalized community and break the circle of poverty for the future generation. And our last word from before we end our presentation, poverty is not an accident like slavery and apartheid. It is man-made and can be removed by the action of the human being. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.